what you feed into your mind. Pick the people that you hang out with. We don't pick our parents. We don't pick our family. So who are you around? Who are you hanging out with? What are you feeding into your mind? If you keep subscribing and listening to the Show Your Value podcast, you're going to get a lot of great wisdom and ideas to pour into your brain. And if you subscribe to other channels that make you come alive, you read books where you're learning and you get inspired, that's a great start versus going and doom scrolling through whatever latest disaster is going to kill us all. We get to be intentional. Most people wake up and they just start to doom scroll through their emails, through news, through Instagram, and they start to feel really negative. If you load my Instagram, my YouTube, it's all entrepreneurship, inspiration. I got Zig Ziglar on. I don't look at my phone and my news and get disappointed. I get inspired. But that's a choice to turn off everything else and turn on the things that make me want to believe in myself more.
Hello and welcome to the Show Your Value podcast, where we explore the art of value creation in three macro buckets: material value creation, emotional energy value creation, and spiritual value creation. My very special guest today is Evan Carmichael. Evan believes in entrepreneurs. Gary Vaynerchuk called him the DJ who inspires people, and Ed Mylett called him the modern day Napoleon Hill. At 19, he built and sold a biotech company. At 22, he was a venture capitalist, raising $500,000 to $15 million. He now runs a YouTube channel for entrepreneurs with over 3 million subscribers and 500 million views. Incredible. He has written 4 books and speaks globally. Evan wants to solve the world's biggest problem: why people don't believe in themselves enough. Forbes named him one of the world's top 40 social marketing talents, and Inc. named him one of the 100 great leadership speakers and 25 social media keynote speakers you need to know. He has set 2 world records, uses a trampoline and a stand-up desk, owns Canada's largest salsa dance studio, where he met his wife, and has a giant bag of Doritos in front of him all day long to remind him he's stronger than the Doritos. Love that. And Toronto is his home. Evan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Lee. Great to be here, man.
Hey, and getting ready for this conversation today, I read your book, Built to Serve. Wow, and just loved it, and how you sort of simplified the process around, who, why, and how to think about that. But it got me wondering, where did you come up with this energy and drive, this positive emotional energy? Because I really think positive emotional energy is the scarcest commodity on the planet, because it supercharges money, it supercharges connectedness, love, community, all the spiritual stuff that go with it. How did that start for you?
Wow, what a compliment. Well, thank you for noticing. Probably from my mom, my parents. They would always tell me, "You're Evan Carmichael. You can do anything you believe that you can." And whenever I doubted myself or didn't do well in a test at school or whatever, they would always just encourage me and tell me that I could do better. But in a positive way. I remember I was never I have 2 sisters, one older, one younger. And they were both getting straight A's, and I was always getting B's and C's, not failing out, but I was never like the star student in the family. And every report card, I'd have to have the talk and go to my parents' bedroom and sit on the bed and we'd look at my report card and, the expectations to do better. But they always made me feel like it was possible. Always filled me with hope that I could do it. And I've just always gravitated towards people doing inspiring things with a hopeful message. When I met you for the first time at your place in Arizona, just the mission that you're on and how you want to help people, and obviously the corporations and the entrepreneurs you're helping, but also all the community work that you're doing and the nonprofits that you're helping, and just the desire to take this message across America, across the world. It's like the more that you're around that kind of energy, the more you want it more in your life too. So I think at the beginning, it was just my parents feeding it into me. As I got older, and if I fast forward to now, my own YouTube channel is that for me. Every day this morning I was listening to Zig Ziglar for an hour. And Zig has passed, but one of the legends of personal development and speaking. And as I'm going on my walk in the morning with my 35-pound vest on, I got Zig in my ear telling me to set goals. It's like, so you can't help but the more you have that in your environment, the more you're going to want to go and do awesome things and pour into other people as well. Where the more you have negativity, if you look at most people are not super positive. You mentioned it's the world's rarest commodity. And if that's all you're around and that's what you're consuming, then you're going to become more of that environment as well. So the good news is you get to choose now. It was a lot harder before. We didn't have the internet before. Now you have people like Lee Benson and books and authors and videos to be able to watch to change your environment to become the person you want to be.
Yeah. Well, one of the quotes that really stood out for me in your book was, it's not about setting and achieving goals. It's about the person you become while you're going down that road, that journey. Talk about that a little bit. I think a lot of folks really miss that.
I think entrepreneurs actually struggle with achieving goals. It's like we're chasing this goal and then you hit it and you're like, oh, that's it? Wow. I thought it would be different. I thought it would feel different, but you're still the same person. And so I remember when we hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube, everybody wanted to do a big party. Like, hey, you hit 1 million. Great. And so we did this giant live stream and it was super fun. And then when we hit 2 million and 3 million, people were like, are you going to do it again? It's like, I don't know. I don't really feel like that's an accomplishment. I feel like the day-to-day work is the accomplishment. I feel like showing up every day and making another video is the accomplishment. And I'm much more rather try to focus on the marriage instead of the wedding. So many people focus on that wedding day. Like, I don't care about the wedding day. I care about the marriage. I care about how I'm showing up every day. And so same thing in my business. You said some very nice things about me in the opening, which are all amazing. And like, how did I become that person? Well, it's in the day-to-day, constantly showing up, even when it's hard, even when I don't feel like it, because I think that's how you change your character. Those are the most character building days. And what you let yourself off the hook for is a sign of your standards and is a sign of the person that you are, from little minor things that you let slip by to bigger events. I have my cast up there. I don't know if you can see that in the background, but I've got a cast behind me. And I broke my neck in 2019. And we were doing a 23 city tour. And 2/3 of the way through in Denver, I broke my neck. And the default assumption was I'm going to go home. Like, okay, that's the end of my tour. And my agent said, come home. And my wife wanted to go home. My doctors are like, okay, when you going to come back? I'm like, well, why is that? I don't want to just automatically cancel. Let me at least try. And we had to cancel the day of in Denver because that was the day of, and I was in the hospital. But now I had my neck broken in 2 spots, had a concussion, and the next stop was Kansas City. And then we did a couple more stops. And I just kept going, and they weren't my best. I wasn't as sharp as I was before because I had a concussion. I'm trying to work through it. But people even said it was even more inspiring than the first one. People came to 2 spots, the first stop and then the last stop. They're like, wow, that was better than the first one. Not because of you, but because of how you showed up. Because you're here staying on your tour, showing up for us with a broken neck and a concussion. And I'm tired, or I'm complaining that my left foot hurts or whatever. And so I'm not going to show up and do the work. And so it's in the doing. There will be some days where it's easy, but those aren't the days that really count. It's like the days that are hard, where you're struggling, where you want to quit, when everybody around you tells you quit, where everybody else gives you the day off. It's like, oh, you shouldn't do that because of blank. And yet you still show up and do it. That's when you start to feel proud of yourself. That's where self-love and self-belief and self-confidence comes from, at least in my opinion. When you do the difficult thing that you didn't think you were capable of doing. And the cast on my wall here is a reminder. I look at that. It's like, I can't believe I did that. I don't know if I would do that again. I hope I would have the courage to do that again, but I don't know if I would. And so it's a reminder of who I am and who I aspire to be.
Yeah, I think that's where real self-esteem and sort of achievement, comes from. Like, where does the intrinsic motivation is from achieving complicated things, difficult things. We feel better, we're more fulfilled, all the way through. So when people say just quit and move away, I think these struggles are all healthy struggles that we need to go through as business leaders. But really, anyone in life, there should be a fair amount of healthy struggle if you want to keep advancing going forward. How do you think about that?
Humans want to grow. We want to grow and we want to serve. And if you're not growing, you're going to start getting unhappy real quick. We want to be learning. And not everybody necessarily needs to be an entrepreneur. I mean, that's you and I. We love it. It's our world. But my wife is not an entrepreneur. She doesn't want to go and serve the world, but she wants to serve the 25 closest people to her. She's the glue for our family. Remembering whoever's birthday and to make them a bag and the call. I'm not going to remember it as. She remembers all that. So she loves it. That's her world. And we all want to grow. We all want to learn. It could be inside the world of business and social media and YouTube and podcasting, or maybe it's, I want to learn guitar. Maybe I want to make my first song. Maybe I want to create a sound studio. I've never done that before. Maybe I want to learn martial arts. But you have to be learning, because the second you stop learning, that's when you start to spiral downwards. And so all of us, we want to learn, we want to grow, and we want to serve. Some of us want to do it on a big scale, the entrepreneurs out here, and some of us want to do it for the closest people. But if you're not serving, then you're not happy.
Yeah, I've heard you say small talk can feel like work and work feels like fun. And it's always interesting to me how so many people look at work as sort of a necessary thing they have to go through. It's not really positive. And that's so unfortunate, because we spend so much time there. We should do something that we love, that's fully aligned with our purpose and the difference we want to make in the world. Talk about that a little bit. Love to change some of our listeners' views on this.
Well, I think your audience may not have, it will probably have similar views on it. But when people ask me about work-life balance, like how many hours do you work? It's like, I don't know. What's work? Like, is this work? For me, this is fun. I see Lee Benson in my calendar. I get to hang out with Lee. This is great. I guess most people would bucket this as a work thing, but for me, it's fun. You know, or when you invited me over to your house and we hung out before you took me to the airport in Arizona. Is that work? I don't know. Like, for me, it's not work. So it's all just life. And I think the more if you are going to work and you see it as work and you don't like it, then it's a sign to move on to something else. It doesn't necessarily mean go be an entrepreneur, although for your audience, probably, but, it may mean that you just need you need to find a different job. Like, most people wake up and drive to a job that they hate, and you will never win doing things that you hate, because somebody else is out there who loves doing that thing. And if you're going up against somebody who loves a thing, and for you, it's just a strategy or just a paycheck, you're never going to win. And so obviously, I mean, I spend time with my wife. We go salsa dancing. I love spending time with her, my son, traveling, etc. But it's all just in the bucket of life for me, as opposed to saying this is work and then this is life. Like, I get a lot of meaning and value from my work.
Yeah. Well, I've always viewed it, at least for the last probably 5 decades, it's one big blended life. Why am I supposed to separate or have the right balance? And it makes no sense to me either. Now, one of the things that's important to me is simplifying the language and the processes so more people can consume it, apply it to actually create value in the world. So I've got my most important number and driver methodology, and when I talk about creating value in the world, I'm always wondering, like, what is the language that will resonate in a productive way with middle income families, low income families, like the majority of the world, as I'm trying to get them on this. Hey, let's all create value, holistic value in the world, bus, if you will. Do what you're meant to do, not what you think you're supposed to do. And I thought it was so brilliant, especially so the who, why, and how. When I got to the why and discovering it through, the worst pain or suffering that you went through, and then that leads to the thing that you do. I mean, it's so simple, such an epiphany. I mean, I speak with a lot of folks, and I love hanging out and exploring topics and all that. But I'd like to walk through this a little bit, starting with the who, your most important core value. Talk a little bit about how to come up with that and why it's so important.
Yeah. So Built to Serve is the book. Who, Why, How is the methodology. It starts with who, and it's figuring out your most important core value. And if you think about all the great things that have happened to you in life, they're all connected somehow. And we often don't see the connections. We just have experienced these great things, but there is a connective tissue between them. And so, you building your business and loving martial arts and doing all of your biohacks and the guitars and the music, it's all connected. It makes you feel a certain way. And if you think about all the great things, your favorite movie, your favorite teacher, who's your favorite teacher of all time? It wasn't because they taught you math or English. It's because they made you a better human somehow. And so how did they make you a better human? And if you think about what you loved about your favorite teacher and what you loved about your favorite movie and your favorite song and your favorite instrument, and you can combine those together, if you can identify what's the connective tissue between them, that then gives you a roadmap going forward. So my favorite teacher of all time is Madame Farr. She taught me French. I don't use French. I'm in Canada. We're supposed to all learn French up until grade 10. But I don't use French at all in my day-to-day. So how is my favorite teacher of all time, my French teacher, she taught me something that I don't use? Because she taught me to believe in myself more. She met me. I went from a B and C student to being straight 90 plus in my last year because she met me every week before school. So every student was assigned a teacher mentor, and most of them never talked to their teacher mentor. I went to go talk to mine every week. So every, whatever it was, Wednesday before class, I would go meet with her and we would sit down and we would just talk, not about French. And she would help me believe in myself more. And she helped turn me from a BC student to straight 90s. And I didn't realize it till looking backwards. It's like, oh, she was just really nice. But why did I gravitate to her? My favorite movie of all time is Seabiscuit, which is this racehorse movie. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I have, yeah, long time.
It's about this jockey that's way too big and a horse that's way too small and an owner who's bankrupt, and they all find each other somehow and they win all these races. And it's based off a true story, obviously dramatized up for Hollywood, but it's not the best movie. It's not winning tons of awards. It's not the greatest acting. It's kind of cheesy, but I really like it. It's a believe story. And so as I look through the things that make me come alive, believe is a consistent theme. And so that's great looking backwards, but going forwards, it allows me to build a plan. The more belief I have in my life, the more I'm going to be happy. And so we can all do this for our own lives. And the one thing I found that's really interesting, and I've done that exercise with tens of thousands of people, their one word or their who is always something positive. It's never death or hatred or something. It's everybody wants to be good. We may not be good. We may do things that are not good because we're in a lot of pain. And the old expression that hurt people hurt people. So there's a lot of people who are in pain. And when you and I have been in pain, we haven't always been our best selves showing up to our friends and family and our colleagues, etc. But we want to be good. People want to be good. And so that's just renewed my faith in humanity. It's like, oh, humans at the core are good people. We want to help. We're just in a lot of pain. So step one is figure out your who. What's your most important core value? And those are some of the exercises that go and do it. The next is the why, which is your purpose, and your purpose comes from your pain. So whatever you struggled the most with is what you want to help other people through. So I struggled the most to believe in myself and as an entrepreneur. And so what do? I help entrepreneurs believe in themselves. And it's spread out to more than just entrepreneurs, but that's my core audience. And so whatever you used to struggle with, you still may struggle with on some scale now, but you're way further ahead than who you used to be. And when you recognize that there are millions of people who right now are currently who you used to be, and they need help, they need guidance, they need a mentor, they need somebody to follow, and they won't learn from me, but they'll learn from you because you've been through the thing that they are currently really, really deeply struggling with right now. But only if you share it, only if you put it out there, only if you serve, only if you make a show or you write a book or you get your message out there. All the work that you do to help people came from your struggle and being able to build up the methodology and apply your genius framework mind to then build not only your organization that you build and sell, but then to help however many thousands of other organizations, and then the ripple effect of the work that does for their communities. And so it's just recognizing that your message has meaning and has value, and you can inspire a lot of people. And whatever you struggled with is what you want to help other people with. And you're further ahead. We think of imposter syndrome. It's like, well, I'm not as good as whoever, I'm no Jack Welch. I'm no Oprah Winfrey or whatever. But you're way ahead of who you used to be. And where are most people stuck? They're stuck at the first step. You can help them on the first step.
Evan, something you said that just really hit me in the book, it was, how did you save yourself? And then leverage that for what you end up essentially doing. Just brilliant. And you start there and then evolve it, because that can improve consistently. That really hit me hard.
Yeah, so that's the third point, is the how, right? So who, why, how? How is, how did you get out of the holes that you were in? Because you're way ahead of where you were. Like right now, even if you look at, Lee Benson, where he is right now compared to 25-year-old Lee Benson, if you look at what you've done over the past X number of years, like it's incredible. 25-year-old Lee Benson would not even think that that's possible of what you accomplished. It's like, there's no way. So you're an impossibility to yourself, let alone other people. And so if you could do it, if 25-year-old Lee Benson could see your story, he's like, holy cow, that's possible. That's crazy. Imagine all the other people who currently are 25-year-old Lee Benson who need that help. And that's for all of us. We are all an impossibility already to our younger selves. You've been through stuff. And we always feel like it's not enough and we're not good enough. We're not where we want to be. And it's great. We still have a mountain to climb. And good news, you always want growth. If you were done, you would not be happy. And so how you got out of that hole and save yourself becomes a recipe for other people, because you tried 1,000 different things and most of them didn't work. And then you found 1, 2, 3 things that actually made a difference, that actually changed the trajectory of your life. And so now you can help other people shortcut that path. Because they met you, they can go faster. Because they know about the most important number, they can go faster. Like we use it. We use most important. You gave me the book. I think I was one of the first people to read the book before it was even public. You gave it to me on the airplane, like the PDF version. And I like devoured it. It's like, this is the best book I've read all year. And I get sent a ton of books. And we started applying it in our company. Like, this is a brilliant methodology. And I apply it to my life. I have a most important number for my health. A weight goal for my health, right? Like, it's not just a business thing. You can apply it to anywhere. Anywhere you have a goal, assign a number to it, figure out your 3 drivers. It's brilliant, right? And so, like, you figured that out. That wasn't just you woke up one night and you got it. That was you tried a whole bunch of things before you ended up on that methodology. But now you can teach it to other people and they can get there a lot faster. Similar to everybody watching. Like, you have learned things over the years. So however you save yourself, you could teach other people and shortcut their path to get out of the hole that they're in as well.
Yeah. I mean, all of that was just a culmination of my 40-year overnight success story, right? Like, all the trials and tribulations moving along. I think a lot of people look at successful people like you and say, and I've heard this, how come these things don't just happen to me? And like, oh my gosh, they don't just happen. You have to like do the work. How did you say that? Do the work, get noticed, then ask for help, kind of walking through. And I thought that's brilliant. So when people say this just doesn't happen to me and they're frustrated and often acting like a victim, it's like, wait a minute, you have to put a little bit of time in to position yourself for that. Talk through that, because that's a great lesson that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, I think you have to combine the inspiration with the action. And so you could pick up Lee's book and learn from it and get inspired. Like, oh my gosh, I want to build a $300 million company too, right? Or I want to learn how to, right? Or me this morning going on my walk and listen to Zig Ziglar, right? Like, I get inspired. I get a lot of ideas. Great. But Zig's not going to do the work for me, right? He's not coming back to then help me grow and do my next step, hire my next teammate, grow my channel, make more content. So the whole point of that inspiration is then to make you more courageous to then go and take action, and hopefully the right action. And so where most people get stuck is they don't do anything. They just feel it's hopeless. So step 1 is, okay, we need to inject hope and possibility and belief into you, which could be a video, a book, a podcast, a word from a friend. Cool. And then we got to start taking action, and consistent action. Nothing happens without dedicated, consistent action. Not every step is going to be perfect. You're going to make tons of mistakes along the way, but most important is that you did something about it. You took the consistent action. So that combination of having the right mindset plus the action. And the challenge is, a mindset is a daily thing. I'm talking to you. I feel great. The rest of the day is going to be amazing. I talked to Lee Benson. I was on his show. It was awesome. I'm going to tell Nina. It's going to be great. And then wake up tomorrow, like, what day is it? What am I doing again? What happened? It's like, at least for me, it's a reset every day. So no matter how great today is, tomorrow I'm starting over. And so that's why successful people have their routines. whatever it is that you need, whether it's, the health routine with working out and cold plunging and sauna and all the fun gadgets you've got at your place, the mindset stuff of reading a book or journaling or going for a walk or listening to content, like whatever the thing is that gets you feeling the belief in yourself to go do something amazing today, putting that into your morning routine so that you feel the bold. If you don't feel it, you're not going to do anything. So getting the feeling first thing in the morning, not like 11 o'clock at night, you happen to watch some video, you get all inspired, and then you go to bed and you kind of start over the next day. So that combination of having inspiration that makes you feel belief in yourself and courage, and then the actual action, if you did that every day, even one small action every day, for the next 6 months, you're going to be a completely different person.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, obviously your team is producing my podcast. We're launching next month. This is really exciting. And I've loved the preparation for each of the guests that I've had, like reading your book and then all the others. And some of them, I've read a couple of books when I had time to go through it. It's like taking my brain to the gym with the insights, and all of it's making me better. So when people say, well, if you read books, you're going to be better off. That's like the intellectual piece of it. So how could we communicate to folks what it feels like to do this? And what I believe is so powerful about your book is I can tell you're on the front lines doing this every day. Like you're doing this stuff. And most books that I read, they're not there. They're talking about concepts. They've been disconnected maybe for years or decades from actually doing the thing they're writing about. And you can tell. And I can't feel it, but in yours, I could feel it. It's brilliant. I'm on the front lines every day with entrepreneurs, helping them just like you. You and I are kind of on the same mission, from coming at it from different angles in a really cool way. What's your suggestion for communicating the right way to think about doing something to help you create more value over time? Like reading and the approach to it, for an example.
Yeah, I mean, I think for that, it's starting with a love of learning. So the world is constantly changing, and the pace of change is only going to get greater. And so you can either live in a world of fear and anxiety and stress of like, oh my God, AI is going to kill us all. And I don't want to learn any of this stuff, and fall backwards. Or you say, okay, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to learn AI. I'm going to learn YouTube. I'm going to learn podcasting. The world is not going back. It's so you can hope all you want for it to be 1990 again or whatever year, but we're not going back to that world. And so the way through is to first learn to love learning. You love change. Something happens. Awesome. I'm going to learn this. And it actually gives, if you love learning and you love change, it gives you a massive advantage, because all the incumbents, for now I'm putting my kind of entrepreneur hat on, like all the people who are in business who are ahead of you are slow to change. And every change that comes out is your chance to win. And so just love learning. That's kind of the macro. When you're getting down to the tactics of whether it's a book or a YouTube video or podcast, I would first understand how do you learn best? I learn best with videos. I don't read that many books. Yours really touched me, and I've never finished a book on a plane and like stayed up like we gotta implement this right away, right? So most books don't hit me. And yours was obviously super well written, but also hit me at the right moment in the right place at the right time for where I was at. And I think you were just asking for a little bit of feedback. Hey, like, what do you think? And it ends up being my favorite book of the year. So it's great. But for something like that, if you have an inkling to read a book or to watch a video or listen to podcasts, you just start and see if it's giving you the value. So some books may be really well written, but just hit you at the wrong time and you're not ready for the message, or it's just not that right moment for you. Some people love my book. Hopefully nobody, hates it, but I'm sure some people have read it and it doesn't do anything for them, where they get the first chapter. It's like, okay, that's not for me, and move on. And that's okay too. You don't have to finish every book. You don't have to finish every video, as long as you then go pick up another one to continue to learn. I know that right next book or video or podcast is around the corner that's going to teach you the thing that you really need to learn.
Yeah. And where I think there's an opportunity, and maybe there's nothing more we can do other than kind of what we're doing given human nature. But that question, and you brought it up in your book, like, what would you tell your 20 or 25-year-old self? And then you flipped it and said, what would my 85-year-old self tell me today? And I've asked that question in groups, like, what would you tell yourself? And, these folks are 45 to 60 and, your 18 or 20-year-old self. And they had these really thoughtful answers. And I said, okay, let's go around one more time. Now tell yourself something you could actually hear at that age, right? And so when it comes to reading and the love of learning, I mean, how would somebody even discover that there's a lot of value? Because if there was value in their mind to do it, they would be doing it. Doesn't mean they need to do it. But it's like, how do we pick up the pace for all of us on discovering the value of doing certain things in a way that it's valuable enough for us to actually do it?
So if we're talking about ourselves, the fact you're even asking that question means that you're on the journey. And so it's just not giving up on your current path. It's just finding another, like whatever you're around right now, the books that you're reading and the videos you're watching have helped you get to where you're at. And you might need to go subscribe to somebody else to help get you to the next path. If you're asking that question, you're already on the journey. A lot of times people then ask that for the people in their lives. Like, how do I get my friend, my wife, my husband, my kids on this journey? And the key thing is just helping them take the first step and not making it seem like a journey. If you say, okay, you're going to start reading, and then for the next 40 years, you're going to read every day. And for you, it's like, that's amazing. For them, it's like, well, that's insane. I'm not going to do that. It's too big a journey. It's too big a commitment. I don't want to commit to that. And so it's just giving them a little tiny bite. There's a great line from a song. See if I can get it right. It's like, I didn't know that I was starving till I tasted you. Where it's like, I didn't know that I desperately needed this. I was just living my life and I thought it was okay. I wouldn't say it was great, but after talking to you, I realized, oh my God, I was starving and I never noticed. And the right book or the right video or the right conversation or the right podcast can change somebody's life. I mean, you felt it. I felt it. There's been some moment or multiple moments where one thought, one video, one book changed our lives. And so you could be that person for somebody else and give them the book or the podcast or the video to watch, but you need discernment. It has to be the right video. It's not just like give the same book to everybody. It's for this person with what they're struggling with right now. I think you should read this. It might help. And that's what gets them hooked. Like if it actually helps, like, oh my God, this is insane. I'm going to keep doing this. And so if it's that question is for ourselves, then you just keep going on the journey and know there are people out there, and there's more and more people that are creating content. Like I look at someone like you, you've built this giant organization, right? 300 plus million in revenue. Where would people get access to that 20 years ago? It's like not possible. I'm 43 years old. I look at my parents when they're 43 years old. It's a completely different world. I still grew up in a world where I had to go to a library in high school to do my research, right? It's like you go to the library and you read a book about something, right? Now I can see Lee Benson making content and learn from his lessons and other people like him. And if I don't like one person, I can go follow another person. Like your best teachers are not in schools anymore. They're online creating content. And that opens up a world of possibility. And so go out and find your teacher. And if you're already on the path, recommend teachers to the people around you.
Yeah, I love the way you're framing this. To me, it's a two-step process when it comes to the work. One is getting them on the track, because my experience is like yours. Once they get on the track, they never want to get off. Now, they may not move as fast as some people will, but they're moving forward always. And then the second part of it is helping them go faster because we're in their lives, supporting their journey, not trying to control it in any way, shape, or form, in a very value creating, supporting way.
Yeah. I look at Jeremy, who's an entrepreneur I invested into, who he went from being a stock boy at a grocery store making minimum wage. He spent all his money on that he had saved up on a course that I had in Toronto. And he came out, who's the youngest one there, who's like 19 years old or something, comes out to that event. And after that, he's asking, hey, can I mow your lawn? Can I walk your dog? Like, I just want to be around this energy more because I don't have this back home. And I said, I don't need somebody to mow my lawn, but thank you. And while I joined my tour, I thought of him and said, maybe I should teach him YouTube. Like I love his energy and his hustle and his drive and just who he is. And so we started a YouTube agency together, helping people grow their channels that just crossed $1 million a year in revenue for him from going, minimum wage and hating his life as a stock clerk. And so I asked him, like, what made the difference for you? Like 19 or 20 coming out to this event where everybody else is in their 30s and 40s and 50s. What made you want to sign up for this thing, being the youngest guy there? And he's like, when I was in school, I was broke and I was tired of being broke. And so I went to YouTube and I searched, how do I make money? And a video of yours popped up and I watched it and I wanted to learn more. And that was the first kind of drug that got him started. That was the entryway. Instead of laying out this giant journey and saying, hey, this is going to be a multi-year thing and you have to have commitment. It's going to be hard. Like, what are they trying to solve right now? And his problem was he just was tired of being broke. And I happened to have a video on my channel that talked about it and he found it. And that was the starting point that ended up changing his life.
Yeah, well, here's one thing that I admire about you among several others is that you've influenced tens of thousands of leaders to get on the right track and move in this direction, believe in themselves, think about creating value in the world, think about it in the right way. I talk about it differently, but holistically, we cultivate material value creation, money. It's super important. You want to have an impact on the world. You need resources to do it. What's the impact? What's the energy that you bring to it? All of that. And that's a pretty incredible accomplishment. I feel like we're both in the same fight to bring value creation to the world, and your reach is incredible. I think if we don't get them started, it doesn't even matter. So my hat's off to you for doing that.
I mean, thank you for noticing. It was never an intent or a strategy. I wish it wasn't some smart plan that I had laid out of here's what I'm going to do. It was really just, I wish there was more smart people sharing their thoughts on video and getting it out to the world. Like, I wish in school I knew Lee Benson. I wish I had a Lee Benson. When I was going through school, I loved money. I loved playing Monopoly. I was always the banker. And I asked my parents, like, okay, how do I make money? What stock should I buy? And they said, well, go be a banker, and buy bank stocks. And Canadian banks are a little safer to buy than US banks. But go be a banker and buy bank. So that's what I did. But they don't that's not their strength. Their strength is not entrepreneurship and making money. And so imagine if I had Lee Benson YouTube videos to watch when I was 13 years old, trying to figure all this out and selling baseball cards, right? Like, it'd be so much further ahead in my life. And that just drives me to get more people like you on the platform, creating content, launching shows, sharing your wisdom, because of the tremendous impact that it can have. Luckily, it's ended up turning out like, we could start businesses around this, and it's having a huge impact. But it just started off as, man, I want more people out there sharing their message because it can really help.
Yeah. And thank you, because a number of years ago, you said, you asked the same questions like you're asking in the book, how do we find you? Where are you at? And my head is down and I'm doing work. And I work with a lot of companies impacting a lot of employees collectively. But we could impact, so many more. And so I'm really making an effort to go out because I'm an introvert. I love the work, head down doing that. And you've really shown me the value of going out there. And so I went through the exercises. And so just maybe a minute or I'll walk through quickly without all the detail, but what I sort of came up with on the who side of it, I'm calling it my most important value, my MIV. It's virtue. And it's the way I think about applying it. Practicing real virtue in the world is intentionally creating value that's measurable, and at the same time, proportionally pushing back on things that take value out of the world. Because it seems to me we've got these two buckets, people, collectively that create value in the world, and then another bucket of folks that want to rig the game. They spend more time, energy, and resources trying to rig the game for a lesser return than had they just used it to create value. And then the why. So what was the biggest pain? Crazy kind of upbringing. Now, I never felt like a victim. I think these were all struggles that developed me to who I am. I wouldn't change anything. But watching people and how they treated each other in my family, and then the folks that they chose to associate with, all in an effort to rig the game in their favor and get something they didn't fully earn by creating that value. It's like, wow, I don't want to be like that. And I realized pretty early on, it's like, gosh, my parents can't really raise themselves, let alone 5 kids. It must be horrible to be in their emotional headspace and what's going on. And then the how, to kind of fast forward here, it's really spreading holistic value creation within organizations of any type or size and families throughout the world, and getting more people on this value creation train, if you will. And I almost wish we didn't call it capitalism. I wish we called it value creationism, because best value wins, and it truly does lift all boats when you think about it that way. So this is how I'm going forward, and it was helpful for me to even think about that. Like, how did I save myself? I did all this before you even told me what I was doing. And so that was such an epiphany as I went through it. Any feedback for me and I could go through movie and book and teachers and all of that too, but any feedback here?
Yeah, I love it. I think, especially when you start with the who, when you say a word of virtue or virtuous, that means something in the dictionary. You could look it up and there's a definition, but there's extra layers of definition for you. Even the idea that you would push back against negative things probably isn't in the dictionary version of what virtuous means, but it means something extra for you. And whatever that extra means, that's not just a thought exercise, but you can bring that to the work and to the life and to your message. And so I would share that inside of the work that you do. What are you not only creating with value, but what are you pushing back against? And is that clear? Are we clear who we, or maybe not who we stand against, but what we stand against, actions that we stand against, things that we are not happy with, and making that part of your day to day. And what ends up happening is, one, it's more invigorating, because like, yes, this is exactly what I want to be doing. So value creation, but also whatever the opposite of value is.
Anything that takes value out of the world.
Yeah. Like suppressing it, like squashing it.
Yeah.
So we're not only lifting up, we're also putting out the fires instead of just, building our forest. And so how do we bring that into our day-to-day work? How does that come into a podcast? How does that come into the coaching sessions, the trainings that you're doing? When you're asking people about their lessons to their younger self, that's all from a positive way. What are the things that we need to squash out from our lives as well, right? So the more clarity you get around that, then it's just about bringing it into the day-to-day. And that becomes a magnet for people who are like that. It's like, I like that. I like what this guy stands for. I like what he's saying. It really deeply resonates with me somehow. And I want more of it. And that more of it may mean I'm going to hire you. I want to come work for you. I want to invest in you. I want to introduce you to somebody, right? As opposed to when people just lead with the tactics, or here's what we do. It's not emotional. But when you start talking about virtue and value creation, it starts to get more emotional. And then people want to exist in your world, and they want to help you spread this thing. Because it touches them on an emotional, spiritual level much more than just, apply these tactics to your business.
Yeah. And to your point, I think about cultivating it every day. I can go super deep on a number of things, other layers below this that we don't have time to get into. And it's in all of my work. And this is what I'm doing every day. And it strengthens every week that goes by my purpose, internal fulfillment. There's, I would say, a healthy level of struggle, because I think to grow, to elevate human consciousness, starting with ourselves, and a simpler way to say is just to figure, stuff out. There has to be some struggle. If there weren't, the less I went to the gym, the stronger, more flexible I would be, right? So,
yeah. So it's, virtue. If you look at what would 85 year old Lee Benson come back and tell you? Would still be around even more virtue. Like you think you're virtuous. Well, you're nothing compared to what you could be. And what is that next level? And everybody around you would say, what do you mean? You're so virtuous. How could you be more virtuous? Well, they just have lower standards than you do. And so what does the next level look like? And I can't answer that question, but it's worth thinking about. And if we're pushing things away, what are the things we need to take a bigger stand against in the world that we're not doing right now? That 85-year-old Lee Benson would be embarrassed looking back and seeing how are you not standing up for this? Right. And it's and the same thing for me with belief, right? 85-year-old Evan, I want to look back now is embarrassed that I'm not. Why are you playing so small, man? Why are you doing this tiny thing compared to this thing that is so obvious that you should be doing? And the point isn't to beat you up, but the point is to say, hey, this is what I still need to then unlock the next level to be able to create more value for the world.
Well, I feel like the more intentionally I do this stuff, every year that goes by, I've grown at least 2 or 3 years faster than the previous, in the last year over the previous 2 or 3 years. It's pretty amazing. So there's no end to it. And I don't think about it as beating myself up either. It's just, I know there's a better way and it's my job to find it. How do we get more of this out in the world? And the way I experience the world, there's those that truly practice virtue, i.e. creating value in the world, and they push back on things. They don't stay silent when it's taking value out of the world. But the majority of people I meet, proportionately, they're more on the virtue signaling side. And I've always said that I always for a long time now, I've said that the most powerful weapon in recorded history is weaponizing false morality and virtue signaling to say, we're good, please do business with us, or to manipulate somebody to get something, which I call rigging the game. There's a lot of that going on. And so that's kind of the area that I play in. I don't want to be right. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to call people out and blow things up, but I do want to get them on this value creation bus going forward. And it's all about that positive journey. Please come with us, because nobody, with probably very few exceptions, is as bad as people say. I mean, usually people aren't as good or as bad. There's good in everybody.
Here's the thing. What I believe is anybody who is just virtue signaling, they don't want to be. They're just scared. They're just hurt. They're just in pain. They're just afraid because people want to be good. Again, as going through this exercise with so many people, I've had people come up and have their who be virtue. And then they realize I'm not actually living a virtuous life at all. I'm ripping off my customers. I just lied to my wife. I like all of these stuff. But it's a powerful self-reflection exercise. It's the mirror that you held up. It's okay, but this is who you actually are. This is why you're not happy. And so it's time to now inject real virtue into your business, into your life. That's going to make some hard conversations and hard decisions. And you have to tell that person that you lied to them and tell that person that you stole from them, because you're never going to be happy. If your one word, your who is virtue, and you're stealing from people, you won't be happy. And so again, the reason why people are doing these things is because they're hurt, they're in pain, they're in their fear. That's where they're living. They don't want to be that. Nobody that I've met has ever been happy doing bad things. But we've all done bad things at times. And our best self would not be proud of some of the things that we've done in our past.
I was going to say, the older I get, the bad things that I wouldn't have given a thought to when I was, 18 or 20, smaller and smaller things become things that are unacceptable. As I go down my path, the journey, even thinking something, because what we think, it really drives how we feel in a lot of ways. And I think I've got a healthy perspective on this. Is just wanting to be the who, that we were talking about. And it feels like you're describing an individual in this example you just brought up that is doing what he thinks he's supposed to do. And people are looking at him like an extrinsic motivation, and going through your exercise, it just has to strengthen intrinsic motivation for everyone.
You're making less mistakes because your standards are going up. Every year, what virtue means becomes more important. And so living a life out of alignment with virtue is increasingly unacceptable. Where a 20-year-old Lee Benson's like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? You don't even have awareness. You don't even know. Right. And so it's just, there's two ways to look at it. The first is internal. So internal is always, my standards are raised and I can still do a better job. I can still believe more. 85-year-old Evan believes more than 43-year-old Evan believes. So I can still do more. There's still growth. I'm not even close to halfway up the mountain of belief. There's like long ways to go, which I use as inspiring as a kick forward. But it's also then patience for others. And so if somebody, I don't believe in haters. People who are virtual signaling are in pain. Like they're not bad. I don't believe in bad people. And maybe it's just a frame of reference for me that I use. Maybe it's not even true. I don't know. It's how I choose to see the world. That there are no bad people, just people who are hurt in a lot of pain. And if you understood their environment, you understand why they're doing it. It doesn't let them off the hook. It doesn't mean you have to be friends with them. It doesn't mean you have to be in business with them, but it doesn't mean you have to hate them either. If anything, it's just empathy and feeling bad for them. Then it becomes a choice of, well, do you want to even try to help these people? You know, like if you're teaching what you teach, the people who are open and ready and willing to learn, you could take really far up the mountain. If they're at base, you could take them up the mountain if they want to climb. Most people aren't even there, though. Most people are like buried 6 feet underground. And so you have to get them to even get to the base of the mountain before you can even start to climb the mountain. And it's a different skill set. Because if you're talking to somebody who hates their life, who's virtue signaling all over the place, who's mean to everybody, if you tell them you can have a great life, I can help you get to here. They're not in that mind. They don't want to hear it. They think you're some greedy corporate, capitalist who's ripping people off, right? It's like they have no desire to even talk to you. It's all in the approach. And so people need to be unburdened. People need to unburden themselves of their past. It doesn't mean that they don't have a responsibility to change their life. They can. But it's a different message. If you're talking to somebody who's 6 feet under and hate their life and causing lots of problems, which is most people, it's a different message compared to somebody who's at the base of the mountain who's like ready to go and climb.
Yeah, 100%. And so what comes to mind here is, and I think getting better and better at this, but helping in an effective way. Because there's been a lot of cases where I've helped people and they saw my desire to help and they did everything they could to take advantage of that. Didn't help at all. In fact, in some ways, I probably made it worse. A few cases, I'm sure I actually made it worse, trying to help. So learning how to help effectively, you just said a bunch there. Any other advice for the listeners on that?
I forget there was a school shooting. I forget which one, maybe Columbine, I don't remember. And they played, the gunman played this, I think it was Alice Cooper. Again, I'm getting you just inspired the story for some reason. No, it was Marilyn Manson. Marilyn was playing Marilyn Manson music. And the reporters afterwards said, hey, like this kid who went in and like shot up all these people was a huge fan of yours, was listening to your music. So if you were talking to him, what would you tell him? Kind of putting him on the spot. And he said, I wouldn't tell him anything. I would just listen to him. And it was one of those interviews that like, like for people who are buried, often they don't need to be told anything. They're not even ready to hear you yet. They just need a hug. They just need somebody to listen to them. They just need to be heard. And even in my head, the idea that listening alone is value was hard for me. It's like, no, but I got to tell them what to do. We got to go change the world. Like they're not even thinking about that. And so a lot of times with people who are really, really low, when people ask me, well, okay, what are you going to tell them? Like, I'm just going to sit with them and listen to them. And if there's an opening that leads to, if they have a question, I'll answer the question. But unless that opening gets created, I'm not going to give them any advice because they won't listen to me anyway. So you're just sitting and listening and having empathy and maybe a hug. And you're waiting for a window. And just like with Jeremy, when he finally got sick and tired of being poor, he went to YouTube and he looked up, how do I make money? And then he found the window and now it can help him climb. But until that window opens, you're just sitting and listening. and helping them unburden feels like you're not doing anything, but is actually incredible value.
Yeah, they're probably not coming to you saying, "Here, solve all my problems." I need somebody to understand, what's really going on. And I can't help, but think that so much of the challenges that people are facing are because of, the media or elected officials and just all the negativity out there in the world. And I fully believe that, the more folks that have their who, why, and how in order, that purpose, that intrinsic motivation, all of that, they won't fall for this stuff because they'll apply what they know: math, common sense, logic, facts, et cetera. Any advice for please don't fall for all the negativity in the world and have it mess you up emotionally?
Yeah, like pick what you feed into your mind. Pick the people that you hang out with. I mean, we don't pick our parents. We don't pick our family. For most of this audience, you're probably now, not still living with your parents. So you can limit access. You're probably not seeing your parents that much anyway. So who are you around? Who are you hanging out with? And what are you feeding into your mind? If you keep subscribing and listening to the Show Your Value podcast, you're going to get a lot of great wisdom and ideas to pour into your brain on a regular basis. And if you subscribe to other channels that make you come alive, you read books where you're learning and you get inspired, that's a great start versus going and doom scrolling through whatever latest disaster is going to kill us all. We get to be intentional. Most people wake up and they just start to doom scroll through their emails, through news, through Instagram, and they start to feel really negative. If you load my Instagram, my YouTube, it's all entrepreneurship, inspiration. I got Zig Ziglar on, I got some quote from Martin Luther King. I got this like great stuff. I don't look at my phone and my news and get disappointed. I get inspired, but that's a choice to turn off everything else and turn on the things that make me want to believe in myself more.
Yeah. I mean, too many people seem to be living a reactionary life. Just get up, start with the doom scrolling, the way you say, that's a perfect term for it. And then just reacting to life. When I think about value creation, there's just three buckets to intentionally cultivate. The money side of it, material. Most will preface it, well, it can't be about the money and it's got to be this. And I feel like a lot of times it's just virtue signaling. But I see it as like, we want to cultivate that because it helps us do more things, have bigger impact. We want to cultivate emotional energy because that supercharges everything else when we're 9 or 10 on a scale from 1 to 10. And then the spiritual side, it's different for everybody. It could be deeply religious, whatever it is. But I think contextually, how we feel as a community and an organization, how we care for each other, strengthening, that community. You talk about this as well. And I think the money is such a useful tool. It shouldn't be a bad thing at all. It can be used for bad. But the other two are the ones that are by far more valuable. But I never say it like, oh, it has to be that, money comes second. No, they're all three things that need to be cultivated. And some people are really good at one or two, and some people are in balance in all three. What does that bring up for you?
Most people do not grow up with a healthy perspective on money. And so now you need to cultivate that for yourself, because your parents probably didn't have a healthy view of money either. And that's where you got it from. And so you don't have to continue to cycle. So what do we learn growing up? Well, either money is everything, and that next person walking into my store, that commission, that's my next guitar, that's my next shoe, that's my next purse. Like we're just looking at it as a sale, and money is everything. And that's the only way that I have status. Like you don't walk around saying, I built a company to $300 million in every intro that you do. I think I brought that up and you haven't said anything about it, and so, but for some people, that's the only thing. It's like, what is their net worth, or that person walking is my next commission. And then for most people, it's the opposite. What are they taught? Money is the root of all evil. Evil. That's what we're taught. And it's actually the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not that money itself is the root. People forget that, the first two words of that. It's neither. Money is not everything, and it's not evil either. How I position it internally for myself and what I've helped entrepreneurs with is money needs to be in your top 5, but it can't be number 1. So if you're an entrepreneur and money is not in your top 5, you're not an entrepreneur. Like, you won't have a business. Even a charity needs to make money. Money cannot be number 1,000 on your list. There's just no way. It has to, it needs to be in your top 5, but it just can't be number 1. Number 1 has to be the mission you're on. You have to have a cause that you would do even if you weren't making money, a cause that you would not sell out for money. And in the process, learn to make money, right? So Alex, has got to be in your top 5, but it just can't be number 1. You want to put it 2, 3, 4, 5, cool. But it's got to be, it just can't be number 1 and it can't be number 100.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in proportion to the impact I want to have in the world or how I want to grow the business, I mean, that has to be in balance with the other ones or it limits us for sure. Evan, this has been fantastic. All the notes I took, we could talk for 3 or 4 days here. Any last thoughts for the listeners, and as well as how can they learn more about you before we wrap up?
Evan Carmichael, wherever you're at, and I'm probably there. You can go find me. YouTube is probably my biggest place where people know me most for, or the books, Built to Serve, we talked about. Last message: if you made it this far in the video, one, go support Lee. Give him some love on the new podcast. It's a lot of effort, a lot of love to start something from scratch. And so give him some love. Let us know in the comments what you thought, especially for somebody at the beginning of their journey. That's, every little comment makes a huge difference. Like, oh, that person liked it. I'm going to keep going. So that's one little act of kindness that you can do today. And then for everybody watching yourself, just do something. Like, you've hopefully learned something from me saying or Lee dropping some wisdom and some nuggets today. The best thank you is to go and do the work. Like, go make some kind of change. Take that idea that you've been sitting on and go do something about it. And then in 2 years, come back and find me or Lee and say, hey, that show you guys did changed my life. It was the spark.
All right. Well, Evan, thank you. And my biggest takeaway for the listeners is go buy Evan's book, Built to Serve. It's so simple and so powerful. And that's some of the hardest stuff to write. So congratulations on that. And this has been the Show Your Value podcast. If you liked this episode and got some value out of it, please like it, leave a review if you have time. Until next time, go forth and create value.